recently a question has been coming up, interestingly enough, in different continents while I was in different countries. But nevertheless, one would say it bears the same motif. And it has to do with the robes we wear. Monks' robes, monastic robes. And basically, the inquiry is about, does it indicate a certain status? Wearing the robes, this color. Is it a prestigious status? Is it a level? You know, you being higher than somebody else. One has to be very careful in trying to answer such a question, because oftentimes the question has been coming from individuals who are not Buddhist or of the Buddhist faith, one would say, or they're just curious. It's not like there is a malintent in the desire to be asking such a question either, as far as I could tell. But nevertheless, it's an interesting question. So, given the context, I've tried to respond to such questions, or that question, in as best as I could or can, given the situation, given the vibes, given the various elements and the energy that I would feel coming off of the individual, and whether they're open. It's not necessarily, if it is not necessarily just a mere curiosity. But I also consider it a poignant question. Does it represent a certain prestige? The robes are there to indicate a state of mind, a level of realization that the person comes to in one's life. Usually, that realization must be about reaching a level of disenchantment with life. Disenchantment that pertains to the way they have lived their life before wearing the robes, before reaching that point where they say, I'm done. The promises that my life thus far have been giving me, or those things that I have been pursuing, I've reached a point where I no longer believe in it. The jig is up. I don't believe in Santa Claus type of a thing anymore. So there is a level of maturity that the person reaches or gets to. Where the answers that they've been trying to give, or society has been giving, or their social circles, or what they've been taught or were raised into believing, culture, race, beliefs, ideas of nationalism, all this gender issues or whatever chips you've had on your shoulder, they're gone. They mean nothing to you because you realize that they have been futile. So it gets the person to reach a point of, well, you reach almost like a precipice. You cannot continue on the way you have done up to that point. So this is a moment of sacrifice. So we never wear the robes, we never take on the robes, we never are given the robes or the ordination as a way for us to augment our past, to become an accessory almost. The robes can never be an accessory to the life that we think we are living, meaning, I'm going to keep parts of my past. I'm going to actually keep some of those ornaments, some of those things that I find value. I'm going to keep those and add this because it kind of fits. And that's accessorizing, basically. And the robes are never going to work for that. Now, is this how it happens in the world of monasticism? Always? No. Of course not. Because people are people. Not everyone approaches the monastic life with the right purpose, with the right maturity, with the right purity of heart. Sometimes it's not like the person is a bad person. Sometimes they fool themselves so much that they believe their ideas about it. But deep down, they never actually will question any of these things that I have been mentioning as to accessorization of the monastic life. Unfortunately, in many cases, and this is not just about the Buddhist monastic life, specifically Theravada in Buddhist monastic life. No, you see this across the board. And this is where there is, one can easily say that seemingly benign question as to whether the robes indicate a certain prestige, unfortunately, in those contexts, it is. But not the way I see it, not the way I'm trying to explain it to be when we are doing it correctly and for the right reasons. So therefore, it is a sad phenomenon to see, to witness how for such a long time taking on the vows of monastic life, usually indicated in the form of the robes that one wears, has been a status symbol, separating you from the rest, which necessitates that you get attention. That's what the way that I see prestige to be in this case. And that's not monastic life. That's not, it doesn't include that realization. There's no talk about that. There's no mention of that. There isn't an iota of that left in the heart of the person or been there in the first place. None. The motives are wrong when you're seeking to be the center of attention. And you see this a lot. There are reports of, I noticed this like 5-10 years ago, I would see these announcements in Buddhist publications or articles. Oh, such and such a Bollywood famous movie star has become a nun. Oh, there's another one over there. Or somebody is given up and they become a monk. And they go and they all of a sudden there is attention. Some high socialite in like a yuppie type of upper class, wealthy individual in New York, let's say, Manhattan, goes and becomes a Buddhist monk. So there's going to be a lot of things published about such a person. Books are going to be written under his authorship. Speaking engagements, this and that. Talking about the wonders of, let's say, Buddhism and things like that. And everybody's moved. Nobody's practicing, though. The person might even end up... the one example that I think of, I think it was on the PBS or something. I remember some years ago there was this high, socialite that becomes a Buddhist monk, but he was a very wealthy photographer, I think. And he continues being a photographer as a Buddhist monk, or he sells his stuff and things. And there's celebrity, prestige. You become part of this, you're in the spotlight. Individuals who are actors who are not getting that attention, they might not be doing this, by the way, with evil intent. Also, I will give them that. Some of them at least. But nevertheless, the question that the person needs to ask themselves is, what am I doing this for? What are the reasons? Is there a singular reason, or is there a multiple? But in either case, the person has to get to the point of, I mentioned disenchantment. Disenchantment towards the things that used to mesmerize you in the past. You need to ask yourself, am I willing to walk away? Am I willing to sacrifice everything for this? That means you're ready to walk through the fire that's to come. Because the monastic life, in this case, we started speaking about the robes, right? Is symbolized through the simplicity of the robes. It's not a prestige, it's not an item that indicates a certain level of status in that sense. It's not going to make you a celebrity. That's not the purpose. Humility is. Sacrificing your past is. You cannot maintain the way you used to do things in your new life as a monastic. They don't go together. Something's got to give. What I was explaining earlier is individuals who want to keep that, meaning those highlights or those aspects of their past life, but now as a monastic, which I mentioned at successorizing. So you're getting, as they say in the vernacular, getting your cake and eating it too. It doesn't work like that. Lord Buddha, as Siddhartha, when he walked away from his kingdom, he walked away from everything. Everything. Even his hair. People don't talk about that, right? They don't know, many of them. But he even cut off his hair, his long braids that he had, for years you have to have long hair as a Katti, as a warrior king. But later on, he even shaved off his head, his hair, He didn't have head hair, even though he's represented as having, the bun on top, that's simply done artistically to kind of distinguish him as a separate bhikkhu. But in real life, he was no different looking in the way he wore his robes or the way he shaved his head. He gave up everything. How many monks do we have in the world who do that? It requires humility of the highest caliber. But that comes from the desire to give up everything. But that desire to give up everything must be instigated by a very strong drive. It's powerful. It's moving you in a different direction than what everyone else you know in your family, in your life, in your surroundings, the people that you've supported, the people that you love or loved or love you, etc. People who appreciate you, people who look at you and in such high regard or hold you in such high esteem, etc. All that, you have to be putting them aside. Why? Because you're standing at the precipice of your life. No one will understand you. So you're not doing this for anyone else other than yourself. That's another way of asking yourself the question, why do I want to get into robes? Why do I want to become a Buddhist monastic? So you didn't hear me say anything about gaining a status or becoming a teacher, having a following, having students, which basically what you have in the world today. People want to have their own websites, people want to have their own temples, their own centers, their own following, their own cult. That's what it is, basically. Nobody seems to be getting in the robes for the right reasons. Why? Because most are not impelled enough. There isn't that fervency in them for the right reasons. So when the person is celebrity at one moment or the center of attention now, but they're fading away, their spotlight is no longer that spotty. It's not so bright anymore. So they have to embellish that. They have to use different tactics. They want to get attention in one way or the other. So for many, doing good deeds is one. You're still getting attention, New modern version of Mother Teresa. A new Gandhi. Unfortunately, people don't know the personal lives of these individuals. What needs to happen is the person has to really spend the time to look at their motives. And if you do not have the necessary fire in you, the urgency, because that's the thing which is going to force you to be humble enough, because the robes will teach you humility. Are you ready to be a student? Most people are not. They just look at the glamorous side. Interestingly enough, they look at that as a glamorous thing. After all, you're doing something else. You're shaving your head and you're wearing robes in a certain way. There are certain rules. Oh, okay, I'll go through this. I'll jump through some hoops. Yes, because the reward is great. It's still not the right reason. It needs to feel like it's a matter of life and death. That's what I mean by urgency. And only a deep level of disenchantment and dispassion can get a person to reach that state of, it's the precipice. It's so sharp. It's like a spearhead. It's so sharp, like obsidian. So definitive. So there's no prestige as such. People will look at you funny. People will look at you with disrespect. Those people that I mentioned who loved you, applauded you, cared for you, sent you roses and cards and, whatnot, they will start talking behind you, not in good ways, or they will actually say it to your face. They will close doors on your face. They will turn their backs on you. Are you willing to do that? Can you see yourself left alone, turned away, being pushed into oblivion? Can you see yourself? Allow, not be the center of attention. That's what the robes are signifying. Again, this is how I understand, how I can approach to describe to a person as to how I see the robes or what I see the robes to be representing. Of course, when you look at the world around you, that's not what you're going to see. The robes have become a sign of prestige, right? Look at any Buddhist temple. Yes, we look simple enough, right? It's just, robes. There's no design on it, no emblems, no stripes or anything like that. But then you look around and you see all these fancy stuff. Ornaments, candles, statues, golden chairs, carvings, bigger temples, following, how many cameras are, pointed at you. How are people approaching you, bowing after bows and bows and bows? Oh, the king is there, bowing to you. The queen is there on her feet, actually hands and feet, knees, crawling to come and get your attention, to get your blessing or something. How's that not prestige? How's that not... come on, the king or the prime minister or some generals or the, presidents of countries are bowing to you or treating you with so much respect. Of course, that's prestige. And you have the majority of monastics shooting for that goal. So there is no precipice there in that context. But it doesn't, mean anything to me. That's not why I became a monk. That's not what I find myself driven to continue to every day live the life of a bhikkhu, the way I understand and am inspired by the example of Lord Buddha himself and his Arya Savakas, his noble disciples, who were living the proper monastic life. And that drive, I am glad to say, is still alive today in certain people's hearts who are moved so deeply to have that Dhamma Chanda, that desire for the Dhamma, that compels them, that impels them, that pushes them. They are ready to burn those bridges behind them. When some people have asked me over time, I myself had actually faced this situation. For years I was like, the example is basically having one foot in one boat and the other in another. The other foot in another boat. And one boat is going this way, obviously the other boat's going that way. Should I, should I not? Should I, should I not? Should I, should I not? You will live an entire lifetime in such ambivalence, in such perplexity, in such confusion. But there's not that big of a confusion, actually. When you look at it carefully, you will see that there is an attachment. Something has to give. And if you noticed, being in that precarious situation where one foot is in one boat and the other is in another boat, that says that the person is lacking faith. Otherwise, why put yourself in that situation? Get yourself in one boat. So you're greedy now. You want the cake and you want to eat it too, right? You want to get the best of both worlds. You want to maintain those connections. You want to maintain that celebrity status. You want to maintain being the celebrity, the center of attention. Well, on one hand, you were, let's say, a famous actor, or you were, I don't know, a famous model, or somebody who was getting attention, wearing a tuxedo or a beautiful gown, right? A crown on your head with a beautiful set of hair and this and that, right? Coiffed. But on the other, you have no crown, no hair. You're not wearing that beautiful gown or that tuxedo. You're wearing a very simple looking cloth, basically, a robe. And your head is shaven. So on the surface, when you look at it, one would say, oh, well, of course, there's such a huge, contrast. My question is there? Really? And for that to be exposed, you need to look at the person's behavior, which shows their motive. The behavior will show whether the person is in it for the right reasons. Of course, there are some bhikkhus, some monastics who are in it for the right reasons, I am very glad to say. But the majority are not. But we're not interested in the majority. The question is, does the robe represent a certain level of status, a difference, a prestige? In that sense, from that point of view, one would say, absolutely. You're not a vulgar person anymore. You were, but not anymore. You don't buy those foolish themes that ran in your head, that impelled you, that moved you with fervency. You realize they're completely futile, useless, utterly nonsense. Why do I want to be a celebrity? What are you, nuts? It's crazy. Because the heart has tasted suffering. Sense pleasures never gave the person's heart happiness, never truly gratified them, never really gave them a sense of purpose. And no, doing good is not going to give you that happiness. It's still a buzz, Doing good itself is nothing. Is ultimately, as far as this path is concerned, it's nothing to write home about. Ultimately, it's still better than doing not good, and better than doing evil things. Of course, no argument there, but that's not why we wear the robes. Because many people keep doing good, whether in robes or not in robes, in lay clothing, and they do good thinking that they're actually living the spiritual life. Not necessarily. You might be doing it with a good heart too, but you're not living the spiritual life as far as this Dhamma is concerned. The heart is not becoming pure because of the good deeds. You're just accumulating some merits, that's all. You still are going to have those passions. You still are going to have likes and dislikes. You still are going to have lust. You still are going to have anger, hatred, aggression in your heart. Just give it the right soil and those seeds will pop. For that, conceit has to be touched in your heart. But in order for you to touch conceit, you need to learn how to be humble. You need to learn how to obey the Dhamma. Yes, obey. That's a big word, right? Today's society doesn't like that. We obey everything else. But when it comes to really the things that matter, we don't. We obey our so-called instincts, our stupidity, delusion. And that's why many people will turn back from the precipice. I didn't say anything about that. It's not like, okay, they see the precipice, some people turn back. They have a change of heart. In my next life. I'll do it in my next life. That's fine, but the person or the individuals might actually have had several approaches to the precipice in the past. They just don't remember it. And they've done a 180 and turned back to living the miserable life or lives they've lived. That just means, samsara doesn't make a difference for samsara. You're just going to have to go through dukkha more and more and more and more until you're fed up. So a person who wears the robes for the right reason, not plural, is a person who's fed up. So you don't have any other agendas. That's why I laugh at those characters who show up and all of a sudden they hit the ground running when it comes to having a cause of justice and this and that and equality of this and that. You see this a lot with these modern day bhikkhunis, who wanted to become bhikkhunis, even though the lineage is dead. And you have characters over there, bhikkhus, Theravadin, who wanted to be in the spotlight. And we're just going to get together and we're going to reinstate the lineage as if they have the authority to, where there are rules for that. You need an actual living Buddha to reinstate a lineage of bhikkhus and bhikkhunis. The day is coming for the bhikkhus also to be wiped out. I'm a bhikkhu, I'm telling you this, because of what's happening, because the Sangha is corrupt. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. But the Dhamma is still pure. The Dhamma that can never be polluted. When I say the Sangha, I mean not the Mahasangha, by the way. And the Maha doesn't come with the number of bhikkhus there. All right? It comes from the nobility of the Sangha. And the nobility comes from the level of awakening of the individual Sangha members. So that's what I mean by, the Sangha is corrupt, not the Arya Sangha, the noble Sangha, the ones who have actually attained, whether Sotapanna all the way to Arahantship. Such individuals can never be corrupted. They are the living embodiments. They're one of the, when we take refuge in the Triple Gem, they're the third. Such individuals have reached that status because they gave it their all. So when we are putting on the robes, we are giving. We're not ready, just ready. We have given up. And you must give up. And not for the sake of getting something over there. Lord Buddha was not giving up his royal status because so that over there's a bucket of something else that he was going to alternate it with. He was going to replace it with. And Devadatta didn't get that point. He didn't understand. For him, it was all a matter of prestige. Oh, he came and he tried to persuade. Look at that ego that this person had. Devadatta, the one who tried to kill Lord Buddha. So he was basically the brother-in-law of Lord Buddha, or Siddhartha, actually. Later on, he came, and he was one of those princes who came and asking for ordination, and Lord Buddha ordained him. So he was his student now. Imagine his audacity. Later on, he comes in and he says, Bhante, I think you've aged enough. You need to be replaced. And who else, who better person than myself? I am taking on the burden of becoming the teacher, the head of the Sangha. Okay? Blatant misconception or wrong view there as to what the robes represent, or what the place or the position of a teacher represents. So many people want to become teachers without understanding what it entails. You don't live for yourself. You don't live for your so-called status, for the prestige. How many monks actually live like that? I've never come across one alive. I've only known through books, through lectures, through sermons, if you will, of 3. Contemporary, you would say, to some degree. One was Ajahn Mun, Luangpo Mun. The other was Webu Sayadaw. And the last one that I know of was Venerable Katukurunde Nyanananda. 3 individuals that have kept the sasana alive. And it is such individuals and their love for the path and how much they've given up that inspire me. Not just me, but all those true monastics who wear the robes for the right reasons, because they don't have option B. There's only one option, and that's why we wear the robes.